Clara woke up on the living room floor for the third time that week. Not because she was drunk, not because she had fallen, but because the only mattress in the house belonged to her 13-year-old daughter. And that September morning, she had exactly $38 in her bank account and 15 days until eviction. She stared at the cracked ceiling and thought for the 100th time, how did I get here? The answer was simple and brutal. 15 years of marriage to a man who convinced her that everything that went wrong was her fault. 15 years believing that if she were better, more patient, quieter, he would stop yelling, stop lying, stop destroying everything around him. When she finally found the courage to leave, Clara thought life would get better. But what nobody tells you is that leaving a destructive relationship is just the beginning. The scars remain, and Clara carried them all. The first scar was guilt. She blamed herself for everything, for the divorce, for her daughter's suffering, for not being able to make the marriage work. Every morning, she woke up with a weight on her chest that said, "You failed." The second scar was shame. Clara had worked as an accountant for 20 years, but after the divorce, she couldn't concentrate anymore. She made stupid mistakes, missed deadlines. And when her boss called her in for a talk, she felt that deep shame of simply existing, as if there were something fundamentally wrong with her. The third scar was distrust. When a coworker offered help, Clara refused harshly. When the neighbor asked if everything was okay, she lied. She trusted no one. Because if the person who promised to love her forever destroyed her, who else could do the same? The fourth scar was abandonment. And that one hurt more than all the others, because it wasn't just her ex-husband who abandoned her. Her daughter, Julia, did too. In their last fight, Julia screamed those words Clara would never forget. "I hate you, Mom. You destroyed our family. I'm going to live with Dad." And she did. She grabbed her backpack, her phone, and slammed the door. Clara was left alone in that empty apartment she could no longer afford, feeling for the first time in her life what it was to be truly abandoned. The fifth scar was the most treacherous of all: self-sabotage. 3 months ago, her boss offered a promotion, more responsibility, better salary, a chance to rebuild. But Clara refused, said she wasn't ready. The truth? She didn't think she deserved it. Deep down, a voice whispered, "You're not good enough. Never were." And now, lying on the cold floor, Clara realized that voice was right, because in 2 weeks she'd be evicted, and she had nowhere to go. The phone rang. It was an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe the screen. "Clara?" The voice was familiar, but she couldn't place it. "This is Robert Almeida. Remember me?" Robert Almeida. Of course she remembered. Former boss from 5 years ago. Serious man, owner of a mid-sized accounting firm. Clara worked for him before the marriage became a complete nightmare. "Hi, Robert," she said, trying to hide her surprise. "How are you?" "Good, Clara. Very good. Look, I'll get straight to the point. I need someone I can trust, someone competent. And you were the best accountant who ever worked for me." Clara felt her heart race. Was he offering a job? "I have a proposal for you," Robert continued. "But I need to meet you in person. Can you do today?" She hesitated. But what did she have to lose? "Sure. Where?" "That coffee shop near the old office. 5 o'clock. "I'll be there." Clara hung up with a strange feeling in her chest. Something between hope and fear. Because every time something good seemed possible, she already expected disaster. At 5 o'clock, she was sitting at a corner table when Robert walked in. He looked older, but still had that air of a man who knew exactly what he wanted. "Clara," he said, shaking her hand, "good to see you." They ordered coffee, made small talk for a few minutes. And then Robert got to the point. "Clara, I know you're going through difficulties. I heard rumors, and I want to offer you an opportunity." She swallowed hard. "What kind of opportunity?" Robert leaned forward, lowering his voice. I have 3 large companies that need accounting services. A lot of money involved. But these companies have some particularities. Clara frowned. Particularities? They need someone who knows how to organize documentation creatively. You understand what I'm saying? She understood perfectly and felt her stomach turn. You're asking me to falsify documents? Robert smiled. It wasn't a malicious smile. It was worse. It was condescending. Clara, I'm offering you $12,000 a month. Clean money, deposited in your account, nobody will know. And you can rebuild your life, pay your bills, bring your daughter back. $12,000. Clara made $2,800 at her current job. $12,000 would change everything. You're a mother, Clara, Robert continued, his voice soft and convincing. Mothers do whatever it takes for their children. You're not stealing. You're surviving. And these companies, they'll keep existing with or without you. The only difference is that with you, they're protected, and you can give Julia a dignified life. Clara looked at the coffee cooling in the cup, thought about her daughter sleeping at her ex-husband's house, thought about the eviction notice taped to the door, thought about all the times she felt small, failed, invisible. How long do I have to decide? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. 48 hours. Clara spent the next 2 nights without sleep. The temptation was huge, bigger than anything she'd ever faced, because it wasn't just about money. It was about proving she had value, that she could succeed, that she deserved to have her daughter back. She picked up the phone 5 times to call Robert and accept, but every time, something stopped her. A memory, an old recollection that came like a ray of light in the darkness. Julia was 7 years old. She was drawing at the kitchen table when she asked, with that innocence only children have, "Mom, why don't you lie like Dad?" Clara had stopped washing dishes and looked at her daughter. "Why should I lie, honey?" "Because Dad says lying sometimes helps, that everyone does it." Clara knelt beside her daughter and held her small hands. "Julia, listen carefully to what Mommy's going to tell you. Lying might seem easier, but the truth is the only thing no one can take from you. When you lie, you lose a piece of who you are, and I never want to lose who I am." Julia had looked at her with those huge eyes and asked, "So you'll always tell the truth, Mom, even when it's hard?" "Always, my love, always." Clara came back to the present with tears in her eyes. That promise, that conversation, that moment when she taught her daughter that integrity was worth more than convenience. And now she was going to throw all that away for $12,000. She picked up the phone and dialed, "Robert, it's me, Clara." "Clara, you decided." "I decided. I'm not going to accept." There was a long silence on the other end. "Are you sure, Clara? This is your chance to start over." "I know, but not this way." "Sorry, Robert. I can't do this." She hung up before he could insist, and for the first time in months, she felt something she'd forgotten existed. Peace. It didn't last long, because 3 days later, the eviction came. Clara packed her things in a suitcase, looked one last time at that apartment that had been her refuge and her prison, and left. She had nowhere to go. Slept in her car the first night, on an acquaintance's couch the second, and was about to accept that she'd sleep on the street when the phone rang again. It was a number she recognized. Paul Mendez, old client, a small businessman she'd served years ago when she still worked for Robert. "Clara, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." They met at a simple restaurant. Paul seemed agitated. "Clara, I heard you're going through difficulties, and I want to tell you something. You saved my company." Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" 5 years ago, when you did my accounting, Robert pressured me to accept some irregular entries, said it was normal, that everyone did it, but you refused. Remember? Clara vaguely remembered. It had been a heated argument with Robert at the time. You told me, Paul, if you do this, you might gain in the short term, but eventually the bill comes, and when it does, you lose everything. I listened to you, Clara. I refused. Robert was furious, and you ended up leaving the company because of it. Clara didn't know that. She always thought Robert had fired her for incompetence. And you know what happened? Paul continued. 2 years later, the IRS investigated all the companies Robert served. Almost all were fined, some closed, but my company came out clean, because you protected me, even when it cost you your job. Clara felt her eyes burn. I never thanked you for that, Paul said. And now I want to do more than thank you. I want to offer you a job, fair salary, honest work, and a temporary apartment until you get reorganized. Clara couldn't speak. She could only cry. 2 weeks later, she was in the new apartment when the doorbell rang. She opened the door and found Julia. Her daughter had a backpack on her back and tears in her eyes. Mom, I'm sorry. Clara pulled her daughter into a tight hug. You don't need to apologize, honey. I do. I blamed you for everything. But Dad, Mom, I saw who he really is. He lies, manipulates. And when I said I wanted to come back to you, he said you were weak, that you lost everything because you were incompetent. Clara held her daughter's face. And what do you think? Julia wiped her tears. I think you're the strongest person I know. Because you lost everything, Mom, everything. And still, you didn't give up who you are. People offered you easy money, and you refused. I know, Mom. Uncle Paul told me. Clara smiled. How do you know that? Because I asked. I wanted to understand why you were doing well again. And he told me everything. Said you were always different, that you never sold your soul, even when you were starving. Julia hugged her mother again. I want to be like you, Mom. I don't want to be like Dad. 5 years passed. Clara now runs a small nonprofit that helps women leaving abusive relationships. She teaches basic finances, emotional autonomy, and, above all, integrity. She's not rich, doesn't have an imported car, doesn't live in a luxury house. But when she wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror, she recognizes the woman she sees. And that, she learned, is the greatest treasure anyone can have. Julia is in college now, studying psychology. And every time Clara visits her, her daughter introduces her the same way. This is the bravest woman I know. Clara doesn't feel brave, but she knows she's free. Free from guilt, free from shame, free from fear. And those 5 wounds she carried, they're still there, but now they're scars, and scars aren't signs of weakness. They're proof of battles won. This isn't just Clara's story, it's your story too, because we all carry wounds, guilt, shame, fear, distrust, self-sabotage. And every day we wake up with a choice. Will we let these wounds choose for us, or will we choose who we want to be? Clara chose, and it changed everything. If this story touched something inside you, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell, because your healing journey is just beginning, and you don't have to walk alone. Leave in the comments which of the 5 wounds you most identified with. Let's build together a community of people who choose healing. See you in the next video.